Before we start this podcast, we are going to acknowledge that Glenn Fricker just made a video this morning letting everybody know about his wife. And Glenn's a friend of the show.
Yep, sure is.
And a really, really good guy. We spent a lot of time with Glenn when he was out
I'm really
here.
Sorry to hear that, but this course of life,
it really is.
Just happen.
Now, there is something that he said we could do to help. Gary, you've learned all about this YouTube algorithm and stuff like that since we started doing this. It's something nobody can ever know all the way, but he's not going to be making any content while he's taking care of his wife. So he's asked if, people could just tune into his channel and let a playlist roll.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're doing that here at Kahler right now. We got YouTube open to Fricker's channel, and we're letting it roll to buy him the time with the YouTube algorithm so he can take care of his wife.
Well, okay, that sounds good.
And we also have one open and rolling of all our Kahler podcasts because that's a brilliant idea. So anybody who wants to help us get bigger numbers, you can do that with us too. But
that's why we're doing this.
That's why we're doing it. So anyway, that's it for the announcement on with the podcast.
Okay.
Welcome to the Kahler podcast. Today we are going to talk about the other part of signing up for our playlist, which is the PDF on how to make your guitar or bass play great. Any guitar or bass. Doesn't matter what bridge it has, doesn't matter. So we're going to talk about that. You ready?
All right. Now, I know we put some of this out before.
We have, but we haven't really given it the attention that it deserves. Now, of course, everybody wants to win the free guitar. I don't blame them. I do too. I'm ineligible.
And this is going to go, we're going to deliver that free guitar, I think, sometime next February.
Yeah.
That's what the idea is.
That
sign up for now. And then how do they win it? Why don't you explain that?
Well, we are just going to have it picked at random, probably by AI or computer program or something like that, so that there's absolutely nobody can cry foul play. While only one person can win the guitar, everybody can download this guide that we've written here at Kahler. It's got a lot of great information in it, and it's pretty easy going. So we'll just go through the steps real quick. Step one is cleaning your guitar and the fretboard. And something that works really, really good for that is naphtha, quadruple zero steel wool, things like that. There are people who like that dirt and like that funk on there.
Well, I don't know.
I mean, what played better, a dirty trumpet or a clean trumpet?
Well, I'm sorry, but a clean trumpet.
Right.
Better.
See, now that's my feeling too, is that if you polish your frets, it's going to immediately sound better. It's going to feel better. If you're changing your strings anyway, why not polish your frets and oil your frets?
That's the wool that you recommend?
That's what I like to use.
Oh, okay.
Now, there are other ways, much more expensive ways that you can do it, but definitely the quadruple zero, and it's important, quadruple zero steel wool, that is the most cost-effective way.
I noticed something else there.
What's
F1. That? F1 Oil.
Yes, F1 Oil. Music Nomad, who we are not affiliated with at all, who is not giving us any kind of kickback. They make really, really good biodegradable products for guitar, and their F1 Oil will it reconditions your fretboard. Okay, step two. This is a really big one. A lot of people, we experience scratchy pots and even input jacks that'll go in and out. Something that is a very easy fix that works most of the time is using some electronics cleaner, and the stuff on there, Deoxit D5, has some sort of proprietary stuff. Any electronics cleaner will work, but the Deoxit D5 works the best, in my experience. I've heard people say before, Well, I mean, just replace the pots. Well, that's kind of like throwing away your favorite t-shirt when it gets dirty. It just needs to be cleaned.
Well, if it has holes in it, just keep wearing it. That's okay.
Speaking of holes, there is a nice little rectangular hole in your potentiometers where you can squirt this thing right in. I will be showing that later. Step 3, this right here is particularly important to our cam bridges, the nut. A lot of times people will have a problem with their Kahler cam bridge staying in tune with the behind the string lock, and it's got nothing to do with the Kahler. It's because they've got a nut that needs to have the slots polished. If the strings don't slide through that nut nice and easy and it binds, then it doesn't matter what the bridge is. It makes it harder for it to stay in tune.
I know that we had problems from time to time, and generally it was any kind of substrate that would grab.
Right.
If it's a plastic or something that is not self sort of lubricating,
right,
it's going to grab it, particularly if that string goes off at an angle.
Yeah. No, it's and then with the wrapped strings, they actually create striations in the nut itself.
So what do you do about that?
Well, you polish it with some of this Mitchell's polishing cord or something else like that. If it's really bad, maybe take a nut slot file. Now, using a nut slot file, you can ruin your nut. You can do what's called blowing the nut really fast. That sounds dirty. I'm glad Daniel's not here. Anyway, if you blow the nut, now your string's too low. You've got to take the nut off and make a whole new one. Unless you build it back up with some nut powder, but that only works on things like bone.
When we come out with a system, we had a string lock that went behind the nut.
Yeah.
And that solved a lot of that problem, but still that nut has to be polished out.
Step 4 is restringing and adjusting the truss rod. This is so important because now you've got your guitar clean and the nut is properly, the slots are properly polished. And so you string the thing back up. Now you want to get it back to tune and use whatever it is. You can use the method where you put your fingers down on either side of the first fret and the last fret and use that string as a straight gauge, or you can actually have a notched neck gauge. That's what I use. I love them. You have a choice here, and it depends on how you play. If you play really, really, really hard, if you're just a hard strummer, big punk rock guy, never do any solos, or if you do, they're simple. You might want a little bit more relief in the neck. But every neck in here on every guitar that I've adjusted is really straight because I have a light touch. Guitar magazines, manufacturers, and just people repeating something over and over has come up to where you have to have relief around the 12th fret. And I believed it myself until I saw the master of all, Dan Erlewine, said, no, you don't. And I tried it, and sure enough, it works.
Okay, that's good. It looks like a bunch of competitors to me.
That's a bunch of competitors. That's how much we want people to get use out of this book. With a Fulcrum, our Fulcrums too, let's see, yeah. I purposely made it to where it was all competitors. There is one bridge in there. There are 2 bridges in there that Kahler used to make, though. We're not going to say what ones. The most important thing for a wedge, be it a 6-hole or a Floyd Rose or whatever.
You're talking about in the setup of the bridge.
The setup of a Fulcrum bridge.
Yes.
Including the Killer, including the Spider,
yes,
the 2500, the Steeler.
Those are all Kahlers, by the way.
Yes, you need to immobilize that bridge to where you can intonate it, and the best way to do it is with a wedge. When you finally adjust your spring claw, when you hit the perfect spot, that wedge will fall out. If you're just using the taped together stack of pennies like some people do, it won't just fall out. So the wedge is definitely the way to go. The cam bridge has to be immobilized too.
Kahler cam bridge.
Does anybody else make one that isn't a counterfeit?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, a counterfeit.
Well, you know what? If you have a counterfeit, instead of setting it up, send it into us for your counterfeit trade-in discount. So anyway, on the new Kahler cam bridges, there is a lock screw in the back of them, and you lock that thing in, and now the cam is in the exact perfect place.
That's not so on the original ones.
No.
We didn't. We got a patent on that about 13, 14 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's when we started to put it in.
Now, if it doesn't have the screw, what I do is I adjust that load lever to where it's so stiff.
What's a load lever?
This screw right here, that's the load lever. Is the lever itself is that little piece right there. That screw comes down and it adjusts the tension of the springs versus strings, and you want that balanced out perfectly.
Yep.
So when it's balanced out perfectly, you actually get a visual representation on the cam. Not on this one, because this is one of the Gibson branded original 500. But there is a perfect place where this cam will sit in alignment with the plate, and that's where you want it. So the screw locks it to where it's exactly perfect, and then you want to balance to where it's sitting there when it's in tune. If that sounds a little confusing, there'll be a full video on how to do this, and you'll understand.
It's a little confusing, but the other thing I want to remind you is that after you get it tuned, you got to have the arm in the cam.
Yep.
And then when you unloosen that screw in the back, always have your finger on that arm, because if it isn't perfect, there will be pressure either down or up.
If you really load this load lever down to where the cam is down there, you can do all your tuning up, your intonation and everything, and the cam won't move. The beauty of the cam itself is that your intonation is separate from the part that actually makes it a vibrato. So once your intonation is set, you can just take the load off that lever and retune, and then once you have the cam balanced perfectly, you're done.
The balance is so that those little fine tuners are at a 90-degree angle with the top of your guitar.
The bar is made out of 303 stainless steel, so it is strong but easily bendable. So have the cam in the right spot. If you don't like the angle of the arm, bend the arm.
Well, everybody has their own. I've had hundreds of phone calls about angle of the arm. Look, just take the damn thing and bend it the way you want it.
Yeah, my experience on that one with all the arms that I've bent a lot of arms now. And speaking just for the Kahler arms, not anybody else's arms. Black seems to survive the best. Gold seems to take bending the worst.
Yeah, I think so.
The next step is going to be intonating and setting your string height. So I always set my string height first, and then I intonate, then I recheck my string height. This is just far too complicated to go into without it being its own video, which, again...
Well, when are you going to do this video?
We'll be doing all these videos as time progresses. It all depends on what crazy new things pop up here at Kahler.
Well, you think you can get those videos done in the next 10 years or 10 minutes or what?
It'll be between 10 years and 10 minutes. I guarantee it.
Boy, that's bullshit.
The goal is to get this all out as quickly as possible.
I would say in the next 3 or 4, 5 months.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Intonation and setting all these things, it's not rocket science. It's not witchcraft. It's just understanding what happens when you turn a screw. That's all it is. And it's nothing to be intimidated by. You just got to make sure that you know what you're doing before you go and start twisting things, not knowing what they're going to do. That was something my metal shop teacher used to always say.
Well,
don't be a
God
knob
bless
twister.
him.
Oh, you're right. We will be going over all the intonation of the different bridges, starting with a Tune-O-Matic style bridge. Now, one thing that makes me sad about the Tune-O-Matic is that the Brass Factory used to make Tune-O-Matic bridges, but we only have Brass Factory tailpieces, no bridges, correct?
That's right.
One thing that I really want to point out is that the picture in the bottom left corner right there, that is a straight edge against a Tune-O-Matic bridge, the bridge part, not the tailpiece, that has had the tailpiece cranked all the way down, and this is what happens. You warp it. You destroy the center. And that changes the radius. It changes all kinds of things. So
it goes down when it's supposed to go up. I mean,
yeah. Okay. Intonating a fixed bridge, the easiest of the easy. Obviously, we're just gonna do a video on that, but pretty simple. The intonating of a 6-hole bridge. You recognize the bridge in the picture?
Of course.
Yeah, that's one of the Brass Factory bridges. I have it on the Strat behind me that's being blocked by my head.
That's fully milled off a solid piece of 360 brass.
That is my favorite 6-hole bridge. But yeah, so the 6-hole bridge, not as easy as a hardtail, but easier than a floating 2-point Fulcrum. Speaking of which, the locking Fulcrum bridge. Now notice there's a Kahler spider in there, and the spider, like most of the Kahlers that I can think of, I just say most and not all. Once again, it's sitting right if those tuners are at a 90-degree angle. The principle is the same with all of these. Wedge to where it's fixed, and then intonate, string height, and then you adjust your spring tension.
Right.
Once again, I will be talking about adjusting the claw on the Fulcrum.
That looks like it's a hell of a lot more difficult than that little screw on the top of the
It
cam.
is so much more difficult. Now, I want to be very clear about this, though. We're not picking on any one particular manufacturer, because
No, let's pick on all of them.
Let's pick on all of them?
Sure.
Okay, starting with Kahler.
They all love us, you know.
Yeah, well...
Or maybe they used to.
Maybe they used to. Well, starting with Kahler, our Fulcrums, you have to adjust them like this too.
Sure do.
Because a Fulcrum is a Fulcrum, and that is the way that it is. Well, here's the important thing.
You got to turn clockwise in order to screw the screw in.
Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey.
I see.
Quarter turn at a time on either side, balancing it out.
Oh, my God.
And then when you get that wedge in there, when you get to exactly the right tension, it'll just drop right out. Yeah. And everything's in tune, and it's perfect. I will say this about the cam bridge. It is much easier with any Kahler cam bridge to change your gauge of strings or your tuning, because you only have that one screw, that one load lever screw. So you can change, you could put a way heavier gauge on, and then just adjust that one screw until it's in tune. Here is the intonation part of a cam bridge, and I go through everything, including that extremely clever front broach on the original Gibsons and the Flyers.
Yep, and the Flyers.
Those brilliant place to hide that. So good. I spent all kinds of time looking for how to adjust my Flyer when I first got it.
And that's a 50 thousandths.
Oh, it's so small.
Allen wrench. And I noticed the Flyer is showing does not have a clutch.
No, it does not. I very on purpose made sure that I found one that didn't have a clutch, because a lot of them didn't have one.
Well, no, we didn't. We developed that later on. Now, all of the later ones after 2 years did have a clutch.
Yeah.
The Flyer was the most inexpensive bridge we made at that time.
Right.
And we made it in 2 spacings. So if you'll notice, we would have the so-called Gibson spacing and the so-called Fender spacing. We had the Gibson, I think, on center line was 2.030. And on the for the Fender spacing, we were at 2.125.
Yeah.
And so we had to make 2 different. Well, all this time we're working on R&D so that we can make the same bridge and adjust the spacing.
Right.
So that's what we did, because in manufacturing, quantity dictates price.
Yeah.
And not only that, when you go into inventory, it's confusing as hell.
The very last step is adjusting your pickup height. Once you have everything set up, this is just like relief in the neck. You know, you're going to use your ears. The default, the setup in the very beginning is 1/8 inch of spacing on your lower side and 1/16 on your higher side, because the mass of the string is less. But then use your ears to adjust it. That really is pretty much it. There's a lot of information in this guide, and it's anybody who wants it, it's yours for free. Enter to win the Strat that we're giving away, that you'll have a shot at it. And then you'll also be able to download this book. And the thing is that maybe you don't want to do that. I know people that are afraid to do anything more than change their strings on their guitar.
Well, maybe that's all they need to do.
And that's great. But it's good to know everything that goes into a full setup, so that you know, if you bring your guitar in and you say full setup, and they say, yeah, okay, great. And then say, does that include, let's just say, reconditioning the fretboard? And they say, yes, of course. And then you get back in there and they haven't done it, and there's all this finger gunk on your fretboard and stuff. You'll be able to look at it and say, like, you didn't do this part because I read this helpful book from Kahler and I know. So really, we're just trying to help you guys all out, because a clean, properly set up guitar is a joy to play. Almost no guitar right after it is unboxed at a guitar store is set up correctly, because they get sent from overseas or across the border. If they come on a boat or a plane, that really changes things. Moving from Louisiana to Las Vegas, every single guitar that I brought, they all need to be adjusted now. All of them. Every last one.
Because it's a drier climate here.
Exactly. So
it doesn't have that Louisiana.
That hot sauce.
Sauce.
You know, but that Louisiana hot sauce has nothing on this one chip there, Moshe. I'm calling you out. I'm waiting for you.
Oh, my God. Now, the reason we're doing all this is to give them all this information. Yeah. And now, how they sign up for this guitar? That's what I want to know.
There will be a link that you click on in the description of this video on YouTube.
Okay. And
it will say something to the effect of www.kahlerusa.com/sign up.
I think, I know very little. I'm not a digital person. It's important they sign up for this, because then we can get you more information about what we're doing.
Well, you have.
And we really mean well. We want to help you.
We really do. Once you sign up, you'll get a welcome email. You have to do whatever it is that it says in the welcome email, or you are not signed up. So just do it. And I mean, that's an amazing guitar. I can't wait to give it to somebody, but I really want everybody to download this guide, because it will save you so many problems.
Okay.
Nothing would make me happier than somebody coming over and saying, like, I started playing Kahlers because I got so much value out of this guide. I figured, well, what else do you guys do that's good? Turns out a lot.
Well, I think we all would feel good about that.
Yeah.
The whole point being that we're trying to get more information out there, that this is an American-made product. We're American people. Mm-hmm. We're right here in Las Vegas, and we want to help everybody with what they're doing.
Okay, well, this feels like a good place to stop. So until next time, I've been Eddie Kernan.
And I'm Gary Kahler, and thank you. And do get back to us about what you think.
See you next week.